All right, back in the basement again today. I'm gonna quickly run through the types of belts that I have, what I like, what I don't like, and who I think they're for. If you're looking for what thickness of belt to get, I've already done a video on that. I'll link it either in the video or in the description box below, depending on how you're watching this. But let's get started with this belt here. This is the most standard belt you'll find. This is called a single prong belt because there is a single male end at the front and multiple female holes on the other end. So a lot of options to stick your prong in. Now, a belt like this is great for a lot of people because, again, it's super easy to get on in terms of you just put it around your waist, put the belt in, and you pull it as tight as you see fit. Stick the prong in the corresponding hole, tuck the excess belt in, and you're good to go, in theory. So if you don't really care about some of these fancy things and getting the best fit possible on your belt, something like this is going to be fine for the majority of people out there. However, there are a couple of things with this style of belt that I don't necessarily like. Number one, when it talks about getting this on as tight as possible, it uses 1-inch hole spacing on here, and it's kind of hard to work the prong into some of those tighter and harder to reach holes. You really have to put your work in, and that's when you're gonna see people use these belts and brace against something and pull against it to try to work this belt in as tight as possible. And just when you think you're there, you have to work that prong in. Oh, it's in, great. Now the problem is, number one, going and doing your set with a super tight belt on, and then number two, getting this off. And that's where you're gonna have to usually get some help, or you'll see people really work this. So while in theory, this is great for adjustability, if this is just a common gym belt, it can fit a wide range of waists. You can wear it in all sorts of different positions. But if you're looking for a really tight and consistent fit and something that's easy to get on and off, this is probably not the best belt for you in that regard. Personally speaking, I also don't like that when you wear a prong style belt, when it's closed, where the belt ends overlap, you typically have somewhat of a triangular gap here just because the leather tends to be a little bit stiffer. It doesn't sit as flat for me on my belly. I don't find that I like that as much as, let's say, one of the lever belts, which I'll show you guys in just a minute. And I can't even get this prong out as I'm trying to do this video. Son of a gun. So let's move on to another style. This is still a prong style belt. So you still have the single male end on this end, and you have multiple female holes on the other. But in this case, you're now dealing with two sets of holes which are offset. So this is called a pioneer cut belt. And what this allows for is basically, instead of 1-inch adjustments, which you'll find on the standard prong style, this offers 1/2-inch adjustments. So number one, easier to get a tighter fit because you're dealing with smaller hole spacing increments, and also a little bit easier, for me at least I find, when you're really in the nitty gritty of trying to cinch this belt super tight, instead of working for that extra inch, you only have to work for an extra 1/2 inch. So less work for me to get it in, which usually I can appreciate. The downside of this, though, however, is I still find that there is that little bit of a gap of where the belt overlaps. But again, I think that's more of just a problem with a prong style belt. But again, this is great for adjustability, great for if you are finding that your weight fluctuates or you want to wear it in different positions. Maybe this is going to be a gym belt for multiple people. This is a really good option. And in fact, I think this is a better option with the actual pioneer cut and the 1/2-inch hole spacing versus something like a standard belt. Now, one of the things I won't show you on here with a prong is a double prong belt, because I don't really recommend those, and there's no reason for me to own one or you to own one in that regard, because it doesn't offer anything that a single prong doesn't already offer. But in that case, you're now having to fight with another prong to get into another hole, and getting it in one hole is hard enough, let alone fighting another prong for that. In my world, I'm the only prong that matters, and in your world, that should be the case too. So I don't recommend double prong for that reason. No added benefit and just more stress and harder to get it in, which no one can appreciate. All right, so that brings us to lever belts. Let's talk about this one. This is what I would consider a standard lever belt. You have a lever on one end, 4 teeth on the male end. This actual lever mounts to the belt using a backing plate and 2 screws, which go somewhere along this row of holes, which is also 1 inch on center. The female end, you only have one option here. So in the prong style belt, we talked about one male to potentially a lot of females. You're playing the field. You don't know where you want your fit to get in. You like having options. In this case, you have one male end, as mentioned, and one female end. you're committing to this, right? This is like getting married. You're marrying where this belt is going to fit on you, but putting it on is really easy. Taking it off, really easy. And you know what to expect with this. So it's like, again, you're marrying this fit. You know exactly how it's gonna feel every single time, which is great because, again, with the lever, using the leverage on it, simple on, simple off, same consistent fit time and time again. You don't have to fight for it. You don't have to work for it, like when you have a lot of different hole options. So take that as you will. Something like this is great for if you don't find your weight is fluctuating a lot, you don't find that you like to wear your belt in different positions or different levels of tightness, you want the same thing over and over again, this is the style of belt for you. However, where this belt can really falter is if you want some adjustability, you want some options, because the only way to really go about it is to take a screwdriver, take this back plate off, and then move the entire lever, in which case, again, you're committing to that same fit over and over again. So if you want to wear your belt at different levels of tightness for squatting and deadlifting, it's really hard to do in this style of bench, or at least I should say, it's not very convenient. One of the things, though, I also like about this belt that I have not mentioned yet is the fact that when this belt is on and it is overlapping, I find this belt to feel better in terms of bracing for me because I don't have that same gap that I have on a prong style belt. But again, that's more just personal preference. Now, there are some other options when it comes to the lever game these days. The first of which I'm going to talk about is known as a Pioneer adjustable lever. So basically similar to what we've already talked about, you have one male and kind of one female end at the other end. So in this case, we're not dealing with holes on the female end, we're dealing with teeth. So this has some bite to it. And the lever style design is just a tad bit different, but it still connects to the belt via 2 screws, a backing plate, and a row of holes, 1 inch on center. But the nice thing about this is it gives you a little bit of options, meaning that these teeth can then go into one of probably about 5 different positions, each one about a 1/2 inch difference. So you have about 2.5 inches of adjustability. So not a lot, but just enough to feel it. And for me, this is one of the belts that I wear as my daily driver because I usually like a little bit of a tighter cinch on a squat versus a deadlift. So I'll change the position slightly. Or if I find that I'm just heavy one day or lighter one day, I can adjust as needed on the fly, which is pretty nice. But I still get the comfort of being married to this basic position with a little bit of play. So it's like you're married but have a little bit of fun on the side, meaning that it's easy on, easy off, and who doesn't like that lever flick? So this belt is ideal for somebody who likes a little bit of play in where they wear their belt, how their belt fits. But again, not really ideal if you're looking to get like a gym belt or share this with multiple people, because they have to really be in the same kind of ballpark in terms of where this is going to fit, unless you want to break out a screwdriver or a small coin and adjust this on the fly, which most people don't want to do in a home environment, let alone a gym environment, and carry around like a screwdriver or something like that in their gym bag. Now, a little bit of a different take on this is the SBD style belt. So before we talked about single male, single female. In the Pioneer adjustable lever set, you have a little bit of play, as I mentioned. The SBD one is like game on, right? Because you still have a traditional lever style up front with 4 teeth on it. But in this case, on the female end, you have a lot of other options. So this is like if you want to be a swinger, I guess. I don't know a good analogy for that, but I'm on it, so we're on it. But with this, again, you would find the holes that would really go with what you're looking for at that particular time. It bites in, and then you have the benefit of a lever of, again, cinching that belt to where it needs to be and the ease of getting it off. That was really tight, so I couldn't really get as good of a belt flick as I wanted to. Let's go for a little bit of a looser hole, and maybe we can get a little bit better of a belt flick. That's more of an unhinged than a true flick. But in this case, what you get is, again, a lot of different options, a lot of adjustability, but also you get that same consistent fit depending on where you're putting this, and the lever really helps get it on and helps get it off. So this is like a real true hybrid of a traditional prong and a traditional lever. If they were to kind of get it on, you would get this monstrosity with this huge, huge lever on here. Now, I don't think that this is the perfect belt for me, however. To me, the biggest downside of a belt like this is where it goes on the female end is still 1 inch hole spacing, so you don't get that fine-tuned adjustment that I really like personally. from the Pioneer adjustable lever belt. However, this belt could be used more in a gym situation where multiple people are using, or if you're sharing with a gym partner, or you just have a very wide variance of your body type and where you like to wear your belt. This will give you the options that the Pioneer adjustable lever will not. So this is, again, another option for you in that regard in terms of lever. Now, the last belt that I want to show you isn't a lever belt, and it's not a prong belt. It's actually a Velcro belt. And I just figured I'd show you as I'm over here with my wall of belts. I'm not going to get into a dip belt. I'm not going to get into the breath belt or the belt squat belt. But this one being a Velcro belt, as the name implies, we all know how Velcro works, either when you were a younger kid, or maybe if you have Olympic lifting shoes, there's a buckle here that you just use as leverage to pull that as tight as possible. And it's easy to close because you're dealing with a wide strip of Velcro in order to get into position. So I have this belt because I find that I use it on certain strongman type lifts like log, overhead press, things where I basically don't want a big bulky belt to get in the way, like with the lever itself, or I don't want to have to work to kind of get the belt on. This is easy on, easy off, easy cinch, very low profile, which I like. However, I wouldn't recommend it to a lot of people who are into powerlifting because depending on the federation that you compete in, it might not be allowed. Chances are it's not allowed. But also these belts are typically thinner in profile and don't offer as much support. And I think these belts are better for that application, but wanted to show you in case you're interested, in case you wanted to just kind of dabble in the belt game, didn't want to fully commit to a leather belt, which can hurt a lot of people. These Velcro ones are much more comfortable. Maybe you do more of like a CrossFit style, or maybe you do Olympic weightlifting. These belts are probably a little bit better because they allow for a lot more movement, but just another option out there. When it's all said and done, for me, if I had to choose one belt, I would go Pioneer adjustable lever just because I train by myself. I don't find my weight fluctuates a ton, and I like that micro adjustments because I do like to wear my belt for slightly different tightnesses, you know, when I squat versus when I deadlift and so forth. But all these belts can offer some benefits to you depending on what you're looking for. Hopefully this video would help answer some of those questions you may have. If it didn't, let me know which questions still remain in the comment section below, or just tell me which belt you prefer. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.